Hi guys, how are you all today morning? Good morning. My name is TSV Raghavan and I live in Chennai, Tamil Nadu, India. Today is 17th November 2023. My name is TSV Raghavan and I live in Chennai, Tamil Nadu, India. This is my spiritual vlog on YouTube. HARDAN, 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 Haribol, TRSV Nectar, NECTAR, Nectar. In this particular vlog and all my previous videos, we have been discussing about the knowledge and information that we have gleaned through the study of spiritual books, scriptures, contemplation on the material universe, and meditation on the spiritual universe. This particular video in this vlog is no exception to that rule. In fact, it is a mere continuation of all that we have been doing in all my previous videos. So let us subscribe to this vlog and press the bell icon so that I may keep reminding you of all my previous, present, and future videos. So let us continue with the topic of discussion for today's video. We shall continue with our discussion about the self which we began in my yesterday's video. We will continue with that discussion today too. As I had mentioned before, self is the most interesting and important topic one individual living human entity, whether male or female, can indulge on. In other words, only when an individual human living entity tries to look within himself or herself does one find his or her ultimate peace and enlightenment. Self realization is one of the most, or in fact, the most important purpose of life for every human living entity, whether male or female. To authenticate this argument, today I shall cite one very enlightening case history. So let us begin. There was a forest somewhere on earth where one fine morning a fire broke out in that forest or jungle. The fire began as a simple spark, but soon it was so fast in its travel and magnitude that it engulfed the whole forest. All the animals of various varieties who were living in this forest peacefully for so long began a running for safety. One tigress also began running for her safety. However, this tigress was very pregnant at that time. While running in one place, she collapsed and gave birth to a tiger cub. After doing that, she vanished into oblivion along with the other animals who were trying to escape that fire. This cub, which was a newborn, soon found itself in a company of sheep. There were several sheep which this newborn tiger cub saw. However, because he was or she was newborn, this tiger cub could not know what its real identity was. This cub joined the fleet of sheep which was running for safety. Because this cub also ran along with the sheep, it soon mingled with that flock of sheep. It was newborn and it was totally unaware of its real identity. This tiger cub began living along with that flock of sheep. The flock of sheep initially could not recognize this very infantile cub and tried to find out that it was actually a tigress or a tiger. Soon this cub intermingled with the sheep and began behaving like one of those sheep. It tried to wail or make a noise according to the other fellow sheep, and it also began eating grass instead of meat, just like the other sheep. They all kept moving in a flock. The sheep in the flock discussed often about the existence of a beast called the tiger or the lion, which was extremely violent, brave, courageous, and which usually roamed alone instead of moving in a flock. This cub only listened to the story of this flock of elderly sheep, and it also began believing that one should be scared of that beast called tiger or lion. It bayed like the sheep, it ate grass, and it lived according to how the sheep in that flock lived. One day, one actual lion or tiger came to the forest and it gave out a very stupendous roar. When it did so, all the animals in that forest, along with that flock of sheep, got very scared. This cub, which was slowly growing into a tiger or lion that it originally was, however, could not understand why the other animals were scared on hearing this roar. This poor cub was totally ignorant of its own identity as a tiger or lion. However, because it was now a part of that flock of sheep, it also began running for safety from that tiger which was standing in front of all of them. The sheep, as well as this cub which had been living with that flock, saw that courageous, brave, and very strong tiger or lion. They all ran, and this cub also followed them. However, it did not realize then that itself had grown into a full-fledged tiger. The tiger which had let out that roar in the initial place saw the sheep, the other animals, and it also saw this lion or tiger which was running for safety along with the sheep. This original tiger or the older tiger was surprised at this sight. It could not understand how some tiger or lion, which looked like this tiger or lion, was running for safety along with that flock of sheep. It ran and ultimately caught hold of this young tiger or lion. It roared at that tiger or lion. I can understand the other animals running away from me, but why are you running away from me? This young tiger could not understand what the older tiger was asking. It said, just like the other animals, I am also scuttling for safety or cover from your presence. The older tiger laughed in a roar. All other animals got scared. Then this tiger said, how is it that you, who are just like me, are scuttling for cover from me and my roar when you can easily confront me and fight with me? This cub turned tiger initially got scared but then intrigued. He said, how is it possible that I am looking like you? The older tiger told him, come, I will show you. This cub, which had hardly seen its own face anywhere before, now followed this older tiger curiously to a pond. This pond was full of water, but the water was muddy because of disturbances by other animals while drinking the water. The older tiger touched the surface of that water. There was a ripple and then there was some disturbance, as a result of which tiny waves made that pond of water muddier and more unclear. Ultimately, the mud settled down and the surface of the water became fresh and clear. This tiger told the younger one, "Now look at your own face on the surface of this water." The younger cub looked at the surface, and lo and behold, it found that it resembled the older tiger in looks. Till now, this younger tiger had only seen the sheep, other animals, and this older tiger now. It had seldom seen a reflection of its own face on the mirror before this, and hence it kept thinking that safely it should be with the sheep and other animals so that it does not come to grief any day or anywhere because of some unexpected surprise. But today, for the first time, this tiger, this young tiger, was looking at the reflection of its own face. The moment it did, it looked surprised at this actual image, and then it looked at the older tiger. The older tiger smiled, and then it said, "Now I will show you how to roar like a tiger." After some initial teething troubles, this young tiger let out just a stupendous roar, just like how the older lion roared. The voice was tumultuous, and to the surprise of the younger tiger, the flock of sheep with which it had been brought up till now ran away from the sight of this younger tiger. The older tiger smiled at the younger one. This is nature. As long as you don't know your own identity, you will feel safe in the company of ordinary animals or sheep or whosoever you are living with. Only when you realize your own true identity will you know what exactly you are. This is a case history which applies clearly to all living entities, whether male or female. We all are born in this material world, in the surrounding of this society. This society is formed of a multitude of humanity which behaves just like a flock of sheep. It does not understand that it is different from the others. If only it had understood this, it would have behaved differently. This particular living entity, whether male or female, has inside him or her the same set of qualities of divinity that great sages, monks, rishis, maharishis, angels, celestial beings, demigods, gods, etc. have. However, because it had lived all its life in the mediocre multitude of humanity, it feels safe to forget about this actual identity. And then, just like the older lion accosted this younger lion one day, similarly, some spiritual master accosts some selected living entity who has been selected because of his or her past karma and destiny, and then it reminds this particular selected living entity that it is more divine than the ordinary multitude which has been surrounding it for the time being till that very moment. Only when this selected chosen living entity comes to know that it is actually more divine than the ordinary multitude, does it start to find out its own real identity. It begins meditating within itself. When it does so, the first thick layer of unnecessary thoughts, ideas, whims, fantasies, choices, preferences, and vasanas make that mirror muddy because of the presence of such muddy thoughts and ideas, just like the pond was muddied when the young tiger looked at it inside that surface of the water. After continuous contemplation and meditation within itself, this living entity, which is trying to find out its real self, finds that the muddy thoughts, views, opinions, ideas, etc., have settled down and the self within is trying to become clearer and clearer. When this surface of water of self becomes totally clear, this particular living entity for the first time finds the same divinity within itself that it had been seeing of images of various demigods, gods, etc. in temples, churches, mosques, and shrines. It is surprised for the first time it comes to know that there is an initial supreme personality of Godhead called Mahavishnu. This Mahavishnu creates this universe through a Brahma. There are several Brahmas of individual universes created by them as per the desire, and guidance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Our own Brahma is one of them. He has one universe in which, in one of the planets, we are living. This universe is balanced in this Milky Way when the same Mahavishnu occupies every part of this universe with its own presence called Garbhodakasai Vishnu. In other words, in this extension or plenary expansion of Mahavishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead condescends to occupy every planet, heavenly body, comets, etc. in that universe created by Brahma. Once he does so, this Brahma inhabits or populates each planet with his or her own choice of living entities. We are one such living entity and we are called human beings. However, regardless of the fact that a particular living entity is human or not, the same Supreme Personality of Godhead, Mahavishnu, who had occupied every heavenly body as Garbhodakasai Vishnu, now comes and occupies every atom which is inhabiting these heavenly bodies. In other words, we as living entities can safely presume that the same Supreme Personality of Godhead is residing within all of us as another plenary form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead called Kshirodakasai Vishnu or Super Soul in English language. When the living entity meditates on the self within, one day or the other, he or she comes face to face with his or herself, and then ultimately the super soul or the divinity within himself or herself. Here I would wish to say that for the first time this very living entity finds that there is a similarity between the self soul and the bigger supreme personality of Godhead called Super Soul or Garbhodakasai Vishnu. This is just like an individual young lion which found a similarity between its own face and that of that older lion who the whole jungle and living entities in that jungle who were not lions or tigers was scared of. In other words, there is one lion or tiger in a jungle which roams around fearlessly and freely alone, while the other sheep or multitude live in flocks scared of the presence of this courageous tiger. We can also become that courageous tiger by meditating within ourselves and finding out that we are a cut above the rest of the multitude in this society which is living like a sheep without any individuality of its own. In other words, we must realize that we are very different from others provided we decide to find or discover our true self and ultimately find that we are a cut above the rest in our divinity and our own quality of self. Anyone or everyone, whether male or female, is invited to feel free to discover his or her self and the divinity within by contemplating and meditating within. Only when we do this do we really find that we are a cut above the rest in this multitude. Once we come to know about this, we can proceed further towards our self spiritual journey towards self realization and then liberation. Liberation is a form which is reached by a living entity when he or she recognizes his or her true identity as the self or the individual spirit soul. Once this self realization is completed, he or she finds that he or she is an alien in this material world, and so he or she tries to liberate himself or herself from this endless cycle of painful births and deaths. Once this particular self succeeds in throwing off these shackles of this chain of repeated births and deaths in the form of different living entities, does it get truly liberated and it comes to its original form as the spirit soul. Before that, it had only realized its own true self. Now it is able to break open the cocoon or shell in which this spirit soul had been imprisoned for so long. Once it is done, this spirit soul, which has now become more mellow, more matured, and more experienced, finds that its ultimate goal is to blend with the Supreme Personality of Godhead as a fully evolved spirit soul which has ultimately recognized its own divinity. We all are welcome to realize ourselves and our own divinity through practice, contemplation, and sincere meditation. This is all I wanted to speak about in this particular video. Please let me know what you think of my talk on this particular matter. Please give me your own expert thoughts, ideas, opinions, and views so that I may blend everything together for the sake of this society. Before concluding, I would like to remind you that I am also a published author with Amazon Kindle and paperback. I write on spiritualism, fiction, and assorted subjects. Spiritualism happens to be my favorite subject. Till we meet in my next video, it is good morning from TSV Raghavan.